They say hunger begins in the stomach. They're wrong. Hunger begins in the moment you realize the person you trusted most has decided you no longer matter. The front door slammed 3 hours ago, but the house still smelled like her. Quintessa's perfume, thick, sugary, aggressive, hung in the hallway like a foreign body. It didn't belong here, not in this old brownstone with its tall ceilings and tired walls. This house had always smelled of age and patience, of dust warmed by sunlight, of dried lavender tucked into drawers decades ago, when life still felt predictable. Now the silence pressed in from all sides. I stood in the kitchen, motionless, staring at the closed pantry door. The quiet wasn't familiar silence anymore. It wasn't the familiar silence I used to enjoy after long days bent over my sewing machine, eyes aching, fingers stiff from fine stitches, back screaming from years of stooping. This silence was different. This silence was waiting. My stomach twisted, sharp and traitorous. I hated myself for it, but I was hungry. Not dramatically starving, just the honest human kind of hunger that arrives in the evening and refuses to be ignored. I reached for the cabinet. The hinges creaked as if offended by the movement. The shelves inside were spotless, immaculate, and completely empty. She had packed fast. I could see it now. Quintessa fluttering through the apartment like a tropical bird trapped indoors, throwing bikinis and sundresses into her suitcase. Bottles of tanning lotion clinked against each other. Flip-flops slapped against the floor. Everything bright, everything light, everything hers. I remembered how she'd stopped in the doorway, shoes already on, keys in hand. She'd smiled, quick, impatient, and held out her palm. "Mama, give me your card, just in case. What if the ATM doesn't work down there?" A cold had run through me then, the kind that doesn't come from drafts. "But Quintessa," I'd said carefully, "that's my whole pension check. What am I supposed to live on for 2 weeks?" She'd rolled her eyes and snatched the card from my fingers. "Oh, don't start. You've got grits. Boil them, add a little butter. It's good for you. A detox. Doctors recommend diets at your age. Stop inventing problems. I deserve this vacation." And then she was gone. Miami, sun, cocktails with tiny umbrellas, music loud enough to drown out responsibility. She took my money. She took my peace. And as I was beginning to understand, she had taken my food too. "Grits," I whispered now. I reached for the top shelf where an old glass jar stood, labeled "Grits" in my handwriting from 20 years ago. The jar felt wrong the moment I lifted it. Too light. I unscrewed the lid. At the bottom lay a few sad grains mixed with gray dust. Not enough to feed a bird. Not enough to pretend. She hadn't checked. Or she had and hadn't cared. My chest went cold. Not the chill of air, but the kind that spreads from the inside when you realize something final. The kind that tells you the truth has arrived and it isn't leaving. She hadn't just been careless. She'd been cruel. I closed the jar. The sound of glass touching wood cracked through the kitchen like a gunshot. I needed to do something. Coins, loose change. Quintessa was careless with money, ironically. She emptied her pockets everywhere. I went to her room. Chaos lived there. Clothes draped over chairs, lipsticks uncapped on the vanity, receipts crushed underfoot like fallen leaves. I searched slowly, methodically, as if calmness might protect my dignity. Nothing. Then my eyes caught a crumpled paper by the trash bin, missed by inches. I bent down. A hotel reservation, flight itinerary. I smoothed it flat. The number leapt at me immediately. Bold, black, merciless. The cost of her beach vacation equaled 3 months of my pension. 3! For years I had mended stockings instead of buying new ones, turned coats inside out and re-sewn them, coats older than the century itself. I skipped fruit so she could have better shoes, better phones, better clothes. "Mama, this is what's in style now." I folded the paper and left her room, shutting the door firmly behind me. The living room waited. Street light filtered through heavy velvet curtains, revealing my treasures, or what I had once called treasures. An antique oak buffet, dark, carved, massive as a tombstone. Behind its glass doors, crystal and Limoges porcelain gleamed faintly. A service for 12, used twice in a lifetime. This is for Quintessa's wedding, I used to tell myself. The wedding never came. The china waited anyway. A silver tea set from my grandmother sat untouched. Jewelry I never wore slept in velvet boxes. Fur coats hung in the closet, smelling of mothballs and history, worth a fortune, dismissed by Quintessa as dust collectors. I looked around slowly. This wasn't a home. It was a museum, and I wasn't the owner. I was the curator. An unpaid curator shuffling in worn slippers, dusting artifacts, starving quietly so that someone else could walk in and take everything without even saying thank you. My stomach growled again, but something else rose with it. Not anger, clarity. Cold, sharp, perfect. I walked to the coffee table where old newspapers lay stacked. Quintessa hated them. Trash, she'd say, but I knew what lived in the classifieds. I flipped pages until I saw the red pencil circle I'd drawn a week earlier, half joking, half afraid. Alistair Sterling. Antiques, silver, rarities. Honest appraisals, house calls. The telephone sat nearby. Old, reliable. I picked up the receiver. The dial tone hummed steadily. Each number took effort, like cracking a safe I'd locked myself inside years ago. It rang. Once, twice. "Hello," a man's voice answered, calm, observant. Listening. I inhaled the dusty air of my museum. "Good evening," I said. My voice surprised me with its firmness. "Is this Mr. Sterling? My name is Uli. Do you buy silver Stanley flatware?" There was a pause. "Yes," he said. "What period?" I looked at the buffet. "Early 20th century." "And condition?" "Unused," I said. "Admired." "I can come tomorrow." At exactly 9 in the morning, the doorbell rang. I hadn't slept. I opened the door to a man in a gray overcoat and wire-rimmed glasses. His eyes missed nothing. When he stepped inside, his expression shifted, just slightly. "You have an interesting home," he said carefully. "This isn't a home," I replied. "It's storage." I opened the velvet case. 12 silver spoons lay inside, heavy and engraved with grapevines and intertwined initials. "Gorham Chantilly," he murmured. "Early production." He named a price. 5 months of my pension. A month ago, I would have accepted gratefully. Today, I shook my head. No. I named my price. He studied me, then smiled. Deal. When he left, the spoons were gone. The money was real. I didn't hide it. I put on my best coat and walked out. Not to the discount store. To the gourmet market I hadn't entered in 15 years. I bought peaches, cheese, bread still warm. At home, I laid out the tablecloth Quintessa never let me use. "Today," I said aloud, "I am the guest." The first bite of peach tasted like freedom, and for the first time in years, I ate without apology. But as I placed the receipt where the silver once rested, I felt it. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning. The price of freedom. The week that followed felt unreal, like time had softened its edges. I woke without alarms. Sunlight crept gently across my pillow, not demanding, not accusing. For the first time in years, I did not rush to calculate what I could afford to eat that day. I did not stand in the kitchen counting teaspoons of sugar as if they were gold. I drank croissants with butter, real butter, not the pale imitation I had trained myself to tolerate. I drank coffee that smelled like coffee, not like boiled resignation. And I listened to the house. It was quieter now, but in a different way. The silence was no longer waiting to punish me. It was resting. That afternoon, I sat in my armchair with a glass of red wine, Cabernet 2015, recommended by a sommelier whose eyebrows raised when I said, "I'll take it." The glass felt heavy, serious. I turned it slowly, watching the liquid cling to the sides. That was when the phone rang. The sound was sharp, insistent. I didn't jump. I already knew who it was. Only Quintessa called as if the telephone owed her an apology for not ringing sooner. I lifted the receiver with one hand, wine glass still in the other. "Hello? Mama!" Her voice burst through the line, loud and artificial. Behind her, waves crashed, music thumped, laughter spilled in careless bursts. "How are you doing? Still alive?" "Alive?" I let the word pass without comment. "Still alive," I said calmly. She laughed, shouting over the noise. "I knew it. You're tougher than you look. Bet you're bored and hungry, though, right?" I took a sip of wine. "Managing." "Oh, come on," she scoffed. "Don't play strong. Just boil the grits, add more water. Makes it stretch. Grandma used to do that." Her words slid over me like rain on glass. She kept talking, complaining about airport food, about sand in her shoes, about a fridge magnet shaped like a dolphin she'd seen for me.